Hey guys, I'm at Wise Earth Farm in Kelowna, BC, my hometown, and this is the farm of some good friends of mine. In fact, I used to farm on this field, and I actually also used to have a plot right across the street from here. But that's another story for another time. Today I'm here on a kind of a mission to show a really innovative way that my friend John is using the Paper Pot Transplanter. And I should just say the whole farm, because they actually do it as a team-based task. There's some other things on this farm too I'd like to show you, because this is a great farm. 2 acres, market garden, 50-foot beds, 320 beds. And it's a profitable farm. They employ 4 people full-time, and then Brenda and John are the owners. And the specific reason I came today is because I want to just show you guys this really cool way that they're using the Paper Pot Transplanter. They do it as 3 people, and the first person, John, runs the machine, and then Danica follows behind, and she basically breaks the chain and then also fetches the next flat for him. And then Brenda uses a collinear hoe to go afterwards and just kind of level out the soil to finish it up nice. And I timed them doing this, and with the 3 of them doing this together, they're planting a 50-foot bed in under 4 minutes. In fact, I counted 2 minutes and 30 seconds, but I know there's some little bit of variation for turning around and stuff like that. And sometimes, you know, it doesn't always go that fast, but their top time was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And the crazy thing about it is, well, the interesting thing about it is, and there's a greater conversation here, is that they have fully switched over to the Paper Pot Transplanter on this farm. They had been doing manual planting, hand transplanting for a long time. I've known these guys for 8 years at least. And it's kind of funny, they were switching to be certified organic, and they actually went through the 3-year transition to be certified organic. And the year they were going to get it, and they actually got approved to be certified organic, they saw the Paper Pot Transplanter and they dropped their organic certification. So like, it kind of shows you the value of this tool and how much of a game changer it is. John is actually using more paper pots than any farmer I know at this kind of scale. I'm sure there's larger farms out there that might use the paper pot that might use a lot more, but John's going through about 13 boxes of paper chains a year. The most I've seen, because I'm co-owner in Paper Pot Company, the most I have seen has been about 8 boxes a year. And those are some farms that do even in California. And so these guys, we're in Canada here, and they're doing a lot of their last transplanting right now, because we are in mid-September. So I'm going to talk to John. I'm going to show you guys how they do this amazingly fast and efficient paper pot transplanting. All right guys, I'm here with John Hofer, and we're at Wise Earth Farm, and I've been filming John run the paper pot. And it's cool to see, because John is a super innovative guy. He's a Hutterite originally, and John has always had this incredible way of coming up with things. And when he told me what he was doing with the paper pot, I had to come and check it out. So John, tell us kind of how did you get into the paper pot? And I kind of want to hear about the certified organic thing, because you guys went through the whole certified transition.
Yes.
Was it 3 years?
We only had to do 1 because of having had 0 stuff in it for years.
Okay.
But we were certified organic last year, and then at the start of this year, we asked NUA, who is our certifier, if they would accept the paper pot, and they're like, no. So we had to send them a letter and say, well, we will rescind our certificate because we're gonna save our backs versus being certified organic.
I know.
So we're still doing everything but that.
Sustainability of ecology versus sustainability of the farmer.
Mankind.
Yeah, and so they're both equally valuable.
Yes.
If you want to have sustainable farms, you got to have sustainable farmers.
That's right.
That can live enough years. So, talk us through I mean, how did you come to this process of doing this?
Like running the machine with 2 people?
Yeah. Well, in a way, you're doing like 2.5, because you got the 3rd person coming in and finishing it up.
I don't know. It was from day 1. I guess our first time we ever used the Paper Pot Transplanter, we had man, how many beds did we have to do? We had 12, 24, we had something like 36 beds to transplant, and there was nothing else to do, and there was 4 or 5 of us, and I'm like, okay, well, let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
So I started pulling it, and of course it takes a bit getting used to it, so I spent the first little bit troubleshooting it. But then Brenda just started pulling him. I'm like, hey Brenda, why don't you help me out pulling him here, you know, holding him down, and then I'll keep walking, and then it just revolutionized. But I kept watching videos of people using them by hand, walking forwards and backwards. I'm like, well, why not have 2 people? Because then the person in the back can actually look and see if your paper pots are popping, and then the front person doesn't have to really, you can just look in the front and just go, right? It was just natural.
Yeah, so take me through the stages, starting with you on the machine, and then tell me what each person is doing. What's the role?
I would take the machine, although there's someone else that the other people do it sometimes too, but I do it most of the time. I'll set up the paper pot planter at the start of the row. Someone else will get the trays ready, so we inoculate them with some fungi and some Acadian, because Acadian has good root vigor, so it helps them to get over transplant shock super quick. They roll out in here, and someone just brings the tray, sets them down on the transplanter, and I simply then slide the whatever that little chute is underneath it. I pull off the first piece of paper, hand it back to the first person, and I start pulling, and they simply set it and away you go. So instead of putting that stake down that most people do, we simply use a human being that's there. So they just have to hold it there, and as soon as you travel a foot, they then cover that little, you know, those first couple feet in, and then I keep walking, and if they're on it, they can then count all the missing ones behind me, and when you get to the end of the row, they're right there as I end. They simply tear it when I slow down, and then I keep going. They will have known how many empty spots there were. They simply pull them off the chain, drop them at the end of the row, at the end of the bed. I turn around and I keep going. So it's basically, I run the machine, the second person make sure that the trays get to the machine and hold down the start of the paper pot transplanter and count how many missing pieces are, ideally. And then they'll tear off the missing ones at the end of the row. The third person simply goes through with a, what are those, collinear hose?
Yep.
A little collinear hole to cover up any paper pots that are showing and to make sure that there's no more other gaps, because I don't know, I'm German, and it's my partner as well. We don't like holes, it's just how I am. So we fill every possible
So
thing.
the third person's like the fixer.
That's right.
They go and they're taking a tally of, and I saw Brenda do this, she's like, John, I need 6. And she went and fixed those up.
So ideally the second person would have done that, actually, to say I need 6. But if I hustle, that person doesn't have time, because they're just chasing me, because they're running for trays, they're doing whatever.
Yeah.
So by running the machine with 2 people, the person running the machine does not have to go fetch the trays. He simply concentrates on running the machine. It's kind of like Big Ag does. The guy in the tractor simply makes sure that the tractor runs. There's the other people that bring all the stuff to it or take stuff away if in case of harvesting. And then there's all the other workers in between. So I grew up on a big farm, so I'm used to that. I'm used to doing everything with 3 or 4 or 10 people.
Yep.
So the more bodies we can slam at a project without tripping over ourselves, that's how we work here. Yeah. So we like taking a project that would normally last 4 or 5 hours for 1 or 2 people, just simply reducing it down to 2. Everybody feels happier. Look at that. We did 15 beds in, what was that, an hour and a half or something like that?
It was incredible. I timed you, and you guys were about 2.5 minutes a bed, but with the finishing and all that, it's maybe just a little under 4.
So 4 minutes times 15 beds is, we're looking at 60 minutes, right? So give or take a little bit more, because I have to go.
This would have been by hand. This would have been almost an all-day activity before, eh? To do those blocks
with 3 people, all of Well, first of all, we wouldn't have transplanted that many, because we wouldn't have done it. We would have been like, okay, we'll cap it at 6 and that's it. So
I mean, so how much has this revolutionized your guys' farm? I mean, I know, because I can see and I've been here, but this is how you guys are using more paper chains than anybody I know. And how much labor do you think this is saving you? I mean, we know as far as time here, but do you think this is reducing a job or 2 on the farm?
Well, it has definitely. The money I spent this year buying all the gear has easily paid for the labor. Now, we haven't really timed because we simply are transplanting more. So it's hard to know how much we transplanted before and what we haven't. You know, for how meticulous I am, I'm surprised I actually don't have those numbers down to a T. I know now how fast we can transplant. So the difference is now, this morning it rained. Normally transplanting, we would have just been like, okay, well, let's transplant in the afternoon because the ground is soggy, and then let's finish up tomorrow or the next day. Today, we were able to come in the afternoon, transplant that, and still go and weed all the other stuff that we have. So the difference is that we can transplant in the window we have. Now, we're from Kelowna here. It doesn't really rain a lot of times, but those are one little thing. If you have, you know, if your days are slammed and you have 2 hours and you have whatever, 5,000 transplants to go in, it's a piece of cake now.
Yeah.
Like this year we transplanted, I was calculating the other day, we did 12 cases, 11 or 12 cases at 237,000 transplants. Well, if doing that by hand, I don't know what that would be, but that's got to be like a labor cost of what, $15,000, $20,000?
Unbelievable.
And
you don't have to pay workers' compensation for that time.
Right. Yeah.
And you don't have to pay taxes on that time.
Yeah.
Or CPP or all that
And
BS.
the machine is now paid for. Now I just have to buy the paper pots.
Yeah.
So all in all, the paper pots this year with shipping, getting them to here with everything we bought, probably was costing us around $8,500.
Canadian.
Switch to Canadian dollars. So $8,500 spent this year buying 200 trays, the transplanter, everything, and saving $15,000 would be my minimum guess. Next year we don't have to buy that much stuff. We simply have to buy the paper pots at $3,500. So we're reducing labor by like what, 75, 80%?
It's amazing.
It's
amazing.
Yeah, I can't. Like our onions, we do a lot of baby onions, baby leeks.
Yeah, tell me about your onions. We were talking about this before the other day, about how much you said in your first crop of onions you figured you paid the whole thing off.
Transplanting them.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Like buying the machine itself, not all the paper pots, but the machine. But still, that's, you know, and those pots we used for that part. So we did 12 beds. We're using a 6-inch chain, and we're doing 3 or 4 seeds per, and that is like all types of onions, shallots to keeper onions to Spanish whites, tropea, which is an Italian heirloom, because we all want them the same thing. I don't want an onion the size of a softball, because I can get a better price by the size of a baseball. And if I can fit the same weight, same volume of onions in that same space with 3 onions, and it's the same amount of work, well, why don't I? Because I actually make more money.
Yeah.
So we did 12 beds like that at 3 or 4 seeds per 6-inch chain pots. We transplanted them all, I think, in 2.5 hours. And we were very green at operating that machine at that time. We had troubles, you know, I had to tinker with it. Now that job would have taken us, well, it would have taken us a little bit longer than that, simply because we have 5 rows, but still peanuts. So yeah, onions, we do 5 rows, 6 inches. Or when we do baby onions, we do 2 inches, 5 rows, which is a lot of all.
Wow.
So when we do pearl onions, the pearl onions are stacked against each other. But you can also yield, oh man, I forget what the numbers are, but it was half a kilo per 1 line per foot. So that's tropea onions at a baby stage. So then times 5, that's how much it yielded per. So the numbers were insane.
Wow.
Like, so now I'm like, okay, well now it actually pays to be a micro farmer that specializes in baby stuff, because that's really where the money is. You can charge 3 times as much money. Well, it's valued at 3 times as much money, and your labor costs are now the same as doing it in large stages.
And you get the crop quicker too. That's the advantage of baby crops that people often overlook, is that you get the crop faster, you go higher density at a higher price.
That's
so
right.
sort of a trifecta of benefit.
Yeah, all of our onions, our baby onions, I think days to maturity, the longest one is like 65 days. Knock off 20 days for transplanting.
Boom.
So you're at 40 days.
Wow.
So 40 days at, pretty much at a couple bucks a foot, $10 a foot.
That's good money.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, it's worth it. You need to make that money in order to make it. Farming is hard. So these numbers seem huge. You just need to do it in order to pay for everything, because everything just takes so much labor.
That's right.
No matter what how we try and do it. I mean, I follow a lot of people, and there's a lot of good farmers out there farming, but I don't see any of them are a millionaire yet.
No.
So,
Not
you know,
from farming.
farming still needs improvement, but I see the improvement needing to be made by people be willing to spend the money, because the farmer already works hard. The farmer is already innovator. He's already trying to go, and I'm not saying that because I'm a farmer. I'm simply saying that because I've been around farmers a long time. I've been around you, worked with you. I you know, these days with the internet, it's super easy to tell, to see how hard people work. They're still the most underpaid people in the world, no matter how much money they make on their farms. It's still, you know, yeah, it's a hard life, man. So we may as well make it as easy as we possibly can.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, one more thing I have a question on the paper pot is, what's your guys' process for turnover? Like, do you pull the chains out of the ground?
No, we have not found that works, but you have to, we find that it's not worth, or it's not fun, and it's just a pain in the ass to go with a direct seeder after it, especially the 4-point seeder. So we will keep our greens beds as greens beds. We'll cycle them through with a carrot and a beet, because we don't paper pot those. But we've tried and we avoid it. So don't direct seed after paper pot.
So, but tell me, like, let's say you just finished some beds of Salanova. What do? Flail mow it?
Oh yes, yeah. So everything gets flail mowed no matter what it is, unless it's like a carrot top and they're dry, then we just take them off the field. So everything gets flail mowed, power harrowed, watered.
Right after?
Yes.
Flail, power harrow, water?
Yes, and then watered all the same day.
Yeah.
Covered with plastic.
Okay.
For at least a week. Then we may or may not take the plastic off and water again, and maybe power harrow it once more, depending on where the roots are and how decomposed it is.
Yeah.
But if not, then after a week's time we can actually go back and plant again.
Yeah, because it looks like, and I'm looking around at empty beds and stuff, and I see the paper, you know, scattered around like it is, and anybody's using this thing. It breaks up so much now that it doesn't get in the way. Like, it's not getting caught in your cedar and stuff like that.
Not with a paper pot, no, not in the paper pot itself. In a 4-point cedar, it
4-point cedar would.
Yeah, I hate it with it. I hate following it with it. Like yesterday, I think I did some planting yesterday. I had no other choice, and yeah, I was like, okay, enough is enough.
Yeah.
But I think there's a way of probably, and I'm looking at that, is making a rake that'll actually sift that out.
Yeah.
Where we just have tines that simply sift them out and get rid of them, and that should work out just great.
Right.
Yeah, we've tried. Actually, you know what? We did take them out in our cilantro and dill. So wherever there's a 2-inch paper pot and we need to do something with those come out easier. But like with a 6-inch that's so far apart, there's so little paper, it doesn't seem to be worth it.
Right.
We haven't really dealt with that yet.
Wow. What are some of the things that you've learned by using the paper pot this year that you definitely want to change, or you're looking to change into next year? Is there anything there?
Well, there's a couple things. We tried kale this year, but again, the spring was a weird spring. It was very cold. So we paper potted it in, and it would have been a smaller plant than we would have normally transplanted it in, so it suffered. So we were thinking about switching back to plugs, just to get the plant bigger. So I think we'll probably go back to that. But what we've determined is anything that is a 6-inch or less, actually 8-inch or less sizing, because head lettuces are 8 inches, we will do paper pot. Anything larger than that, we're simply going to go back to our soil blocks and go bigger, plant and transplant them, because it takes peanuts. When you have 100 plants per bed and you do 12 rows, it actually doesn't take that long. Especially kale, you do it once a year. Why not?
Yeah.
It's not that much work.
Wow.
But if I planted kale every week, I'd consider switching, or doing something, or maybe seeing if there's a way of taking the paper pot and turning it into a 2-inch pot, which I'm sure there's probably talk of that, a 2-inch pot, and transplanting them that way. No, 2-inch wide.
2-inch wide.
Or inch and a half or something. I'm sure something will come from that.
Yeah.
To let them get bigger.
All right, guys, if you found that helpful, hit the subscribe button and notification button next to it. If you want to buy a Paper Pot Transplanter, I'll have a link in the show notes right below. You can check that out if you're curious, and stay tuned for more videos here at Wise Earth Farm.